begin with our first topic, is reading in the digital age. How is reading affected, helped, harmed? I want to start with Ray Lamont, one of our Word representatives here. How is reading in the age of television and the internet being changed?
Well, I think it's clear that first, John, happy 25th anniversary or happy 25th birthday, however you want to think about it on the writer's block.
Thank you.
It really is a great achievement. Thank you. I think, and we were talking about word and reading in the digital age and on the internet and so forth. I think it's clear. I think that people are probably reading as much as ever. They're getting the delivery of those words differently. But I think it depends on how you define reading. For example, at the Gloucester Times, we've just recently expanded our web news presentation so that even more so, as it has in the past, that we have the print edition of the Times, which is still, community newspapers are still doing well, are still more than holding their own. We keep hearing about the decline of newspapers. That I've always maintained is by and large the real major newspapers who have different types of competition, as Eric talked about initially, from these different mediums. They're competing for national and world news and so forth with the cable news channels. The local community papers like the Gloucester Times, until CNN or NBC and ABC are regularly covering news in Gloucester, Rockport, Manchester, and Essex, I think people still very much look to us for the local news coverage in their own communities, in their own backyards. But at the same time, in terms of reading in the digital age, we're adding a lot more extensive presentations online that give people the chance. For example, I'm trying to think of a classic example of it, but we had a story today about a case involving a dog that was locked in a car in one of our local towns. We did the story that they're looking for the person involved and so forth. But we also had online, we added the full text of what the U.S. Humane Society recommends for dealing with these types of situations. That's something that for the space in print newspapers we weren't able to do before, whereas now we're able to offer that as well, and we're already finding today that people have indeed gone to that and called it up. So I think people are very much still reading. They're just reading through different deliveries, and community newspapers especially are still evolving into delivering that news in the written word and the photography and the video coverage to them in a ever increasingly different way.
That's really interesting that you would say that, because there you see a lot of commentary about the demise of newspapers and the decline of reading, and it's good refreshing to hear that kind of optimism.
Well, and I also think that when you really look online, are you just looking at videos? Are you just looking at photos? Or are you reading the copy online? I mean, for better or worse, I mean, a lot of the words online can be a little shaky sometimes, but people are certainly still reading. I think we are seeing, through texting and things like that, we're seeing kind of the loss of some of the grammar skills that we all grew up with. But in terms of communication, I think it's clear that people are still reading. They are still reading local newspapers, and they're especially reading news outlet printed coverage that's online.
I want to ask Seneca Nagella, who's moving this way, and because you're a visual person, do you agree that reading is prospering, or do you think visual media are causing an epidemic of ADD and nobody's...
I think reading's never been in trouble, actually. I think in the early days of cable television, there was a fear among newspapers about advertising dollars, and now I'm sure television and newspapers are feeling the same about the internet. But that's completely different from reading. Statistically, I think people did stop reading books as much, but now I think readership is actually up again. People are reading as much as ever, just about. But you're right that it's very different in that I feel you're doing research more quickly. You know, if my husband's reading Victor Hugo and I want to know where he lived and what he did, I find out like that. If I need a new recipe for something because my sister's over the house and she's allergic to my favorite one, I got one just like that. So I think that that's really, really changed. And I would say that's the biggest part of the change in reading, you know, other than the Kindles and things we get to later.
Eric Archer, I'll move down the line here. You have your own page on IMDb. So I mean, that's the height of visual.
I wasn't aware of that.
Visual status. Do you think the reading is in trouble, or if it is that a,
No,
is
I
that
don't
a
think
worry?
it's in trouble. I mean, I probably spend more of my day reading than I did 10 years ago because it's in my pocket on my phone, or it's on my iPad or on my laptop, and it's always accessible to me. And it's also more interactive now. You know, I can follow links to find out, you know, if I want to dig into something more deeply. I have aggregators that, you know, if I want to really find a bunch of articles about camera lenses, I can search for that and find sources, local sources, sources from other countries, and learn all about that. So that's a different way of reading.